You stayed late again. You cleared your inbox. You joined every meeting, replied to every message, finished every task that landed on your desk, and at the end of the day, you felt like you did something. That feeling is the problem. There is a version of work that looks like progress but is actually just motion. You are moving, constantly moving, but you are not going anywhere that matters. And the strange part is, the system around you is designed to keep it that way. Not out of malice. Most companies are not run by villains, but good intentions and misaligned incentives can produce the same result. And the result is this: the most visible employees are not always the most valuable ones. They are just the busiest. Think about how performance gets measured at most jobs. You are seen. You are available. You respond fast. You show up early, stay late, volunteer for things. All of that gets noticed. It signals something. It signals effort. But effort is not the same as output. And output is not the same as impact. Most companies know this intellectually. They will tell you in some all-hands meeting or performance review that they value results over activity. Then they will promote the person who sends the most updates, leads the most initiatives, and fills every calendar slot. Not because they are dishonest, because busyness is visible and impact is hard to measure, so the system drifts toward rewarding what it can see. Here is how this plays out in a real office. There are two people on the same team. One person works 9 to 5, says no to most meetings, and spends most of her time on one or two things that genuinely move the needle. She is hard to read. You do not always know what she is doing. The other person is everywhere. He is on every thread, in every meeting, always the first to respond to Slack. His calendar is full. He looks indispensable. At the end of the quarter, her work produces actual results. His work produces activity reports. And yet, in many organizations, he gets noticed more. He gets the opportunities, not because leadership is blind, but because presence reads as value, busyness reads as commitment. And most organizations are not set up to distinguish between the two quickly enough. This is not an accident. There are psychological and structural reasons this happens. On the psychological side, humans are bad at evaluating invisible work, deep thinking, careful decision-making, strategic patience, saying no to 10 things so you can do one thing well. None of that looks like much from the outside. What looks like something is movement, response time, face time, volume. On the structural side, most companies are organized around activity metrics by default. How many calls did you make? How many tasks did you close? How many projects are you on? These things are easy to track, so they become the default signal of performance. And when those become the signal, people adapt. Not cynically, but naturally. You start to optimize for what gets rewarded. You take on more. You say yes more. You make sure you are seen working, not just working. Over time, the goal shifts without you noticing. You are no longer trying to produce something meaningful. You are trying to look productive. And because those two things overlap enough, you do not catch it happening. The deeper issue is that busyness protects you from something uncomfortable. When your schedule is full, you never have to ask whether the work matters. You just do the work. There is no gap, no silence, no space to notice that you have been running hard for 2 years and you are not sure where you have gotten to. Busy people do not have time to question the work. That is convenient for everyone. If you slowed down, if you said no more, if you spent 3 hours on one thing instead of 30 minutes on 6 things, you would eventually come face to face with a harder question. Is this the right thing to be spending my life on? That question is uncomfortable. Busyness makes it disappear. Companies benefit from this too, even unconsciously. An employee who never questions the work, who just executes, who stays busy and grateful for the momentum is easy to manage. An employee who thinks carefully about what is worth doing and what is not, who pushes back, who optimizes for actual results rather than visible effort, that person is harder to manage, more unpredictable, requires more trust. So the system selects, gently but consistently, for compliance over clarity. None of this is easy to see from the inside. When you are busy, you feel useful. There is neuroscience behind this. The brain releases dopamine when you complete tasks, any tasks. Checking email, closing a ticket, finishing a report nobody will read. It all feels the same in the moment. Your brain rewards the motion, not the meaning. So you stay in the loop. You take pride in your response time. You feel guilty when your calendar has a gap. You start to associate a quiet afternoon with laziness rather than focus. Meanwhile, the actual work, the thinking, the work that would genuinely move something forward, gets squeezed into the margins. Early mornings, stolen hours, moments between meetings. The important stuff becomes the thing you get to if there is time, which there never is, because you filled the time with everything else. Here is a different way to look at it. Your career is not measured in hours worked or tasks completed. It is measured in outcomes produced over time. And outcomes require a different kind of energy than busyness does. They require you to sit with a problem long enough to actually understand it. They require saying no to things that are fine so you can say yes to things that matter. They require being willing to be less visible for a while, to disappear into actual work and trust that the results will speak eventually. That is harder than being busy. It is also riskier in the short term. The busy person gets seen, the focused person gets results, and results take longer to register than presence does. But at some point, if you stay in the same place long enough, people start to see the pattern. The person who is always in the room but never changes anything. The person who is hard to find but whose fingerprints are on everything that worked. Eventually, the distinction becomes obvious. The question is whether you are willing to play that longer game while everyone around you is optimizing for the short one. There is a practical side to this. You cannot just decide to stop being busy and start being focused. There are real expectations on you, real obligations, real consequences for being less available. But you can make small, deliberate choices. You can look at your week and find one block of time, maybe 2 hours, that you protect for the work that actually matters, not the urgent work, not the reactive work, the work that moves something. You can practice saying, I am going to pass on this one about things that are not essential, not dramatically, not as a statement, just quietly, consistently making room. You can start measuring your own performance differently. Not by how much you did, but by what actually changed because of what you did. That is a harder metric. It will frustrate you. But it will also start to reorient how you spend your time. The thing nobody tells you early enough is that the company will always have more work for you. The inbox will never be empty. The meetings will never stop. The requests will always outpace your capacity. That is not a problem to solve. That is just the nature of organizations. What you decide to do with your attention inside that reality, that is the only thing you actually control. Most people spend years figuring that out. Some figure it out and then forget it. A few figure it out and hold on to it. The ones who hold on to it tend to build something real, not just a reputation for being available. That is worth thinking about the next time you feel busy and wonder why it does not feel like enough.